So today I'm reviewing Edgedancer by Brandon Sanderson. Okay, so I'm neck deep in Stormlight Archives right now in preparation for 2023, aka the year of Sanderson. And I realize I haven't made reviews yet for Way of Kings or Words of Radiance, and I'm still planning on doing that, but I just finished Edgedancer, and I figured I'd make a better review if it's fresh in my mind. So here it goes. First of all, Edgedancer is a Stormlight Archives novella that is meant to be read after Words of Radiance and before Oathbringer. It is included in 2016's Arcanum Unbounded, which is an enormous collection of Sanderson novellas and short stories, all taking place in the Cosmere. It has also been published as a separate novella, but I opted for the Cosmere collection. If you haven't read Way of Kings or Words of Radiance, you will want to read those before Edgedancer and probably before going further in this review, as it will contain major spoilers for Way of Kings and Words of Radiance. One of my favorite parts of Words of Radiance was Lift's storyline. I've heard Sanderson refer to the Lift interlude in Words of Radiance as a novella, and I suppose it is, which goes to show you how epic his novels are, that he's just got novellas in between chapters. Lift was such a refreshing character, and I love the way that Sanderson made her storyline fun and immature, even though it dealt with arguably some of the darkest and most central moments to the overarching plot that we've seen so far in the Stormlight Archives. When her interlude ended, I was left with a feeling of excitement at the thought that there is no way that this is the last we've seen of Lift. By the sheer genius of her character and the importance of her storyline to the overarching story, it seemed a sure thing to me that I would get more Lift at some point. And little did I know that there was already a full novella focused on Lift waiting for me, and it picks up right where we left her. Well, almost. Edgedancer starts off with Lift and Wyndle making their way toward Yeddaw for reasons unknown, at least to begin with. Lift does give some obviously dismissive answers to why she's going to Yeddaw when Wyndle interrogates her. She says she needs to try all 10 different kinds of pancakes that the city is famous for. Wyndle knows that this is untrue, so does the reader. This is just a part of Lift's charm. It's how she talks. She tends to evade questions, never allowing herself to be nailed down or committed to anything or anyone. Her personality matches her powers. Upon her arrival, she does a handful of things that seem to be almost accidental, but as you get to know Lift more and more, you realize that this is a deeply intelligent, observant, and reflective girl who prefers not to let her actions shine. She'd much prefer to play off her actions as some sort of happy accident. She speaks to Wyndle several times about how letting people see you and get to know you is bad because then they'll begin to expect things of you and you'll be stuck. This goes against the very nature of Little Miss Frictionbender, and this is apparently why she left her privileged new lifestyle with Gox at the palace in Azimir. Yes, she was treated like royalty, allowed to do whatever she wanted, allowed to miss classes even, and play pranks on the nobility with no consequences, yet Lift refused to be tied down. She is very rough around the edges and deflects Wyndle's concerns with offhand remarks to make it appear as if she doesn't really take anything seriously. If you read carefully though, you begin to notice that she really does consider things more than she cares to admit, and acts on impulse to do what is right, but again deflects whenever Wyndle questions her about any of it. Wyndle begins to pick up on this and starts to read between the lines when she says she just wants to snatch Darkness's lunch. And Wyndle realizes what she really means is that she wants to save the budding Radiant that Darkness came to Yeddaw to murder. The way Sanderson blasted this character with humor bursting out of every sentence, while at the same time tackling some of the most troubling and difficult topics I've seen yet, is incredible. Lift deals with her own mother's death, with the cruel reality of mothers abandoning their developmentally disabled children at an orphanage, where the hard-hearted woman who runs it simply uses the children as a front for laundering money to criminal organizations. And she once again watches the shockingly apathetic herald Nail, or Darkness as Lift has dubbed him, give no thought to shoving his shard blade through a young girl's chest and tossing her aside like garbage. There is some seriously dark stuff in this story, and we begin to see that Lift's immature way of speaking is more a defense mechanism than a sign of immaturity. This is a young woman who has lived a very difficult life thus far and who views the world accordingly. Lift's character arc in this is so well done. Not only does this short chain of events change how the reader views and understands Lyft, but it also changes how Lyft sees herself, how she sees Wyndle, and everyone around her. Without outright spoiling it, I will simply say that there is a major theme of listening to those who have been ignored. And for an orphan who has developed a sort of Stockholm syndrome for the short end of the stick, this is an oath that hits particularly close to home for Lyft. By the end, Lyft makes a conscious decision to stop slipping out from the grip of her own destiny, but to be brave and to listen to those who have been ignored. The first instance we see of Lyft fulfilling this oath is wildly unexpected. It's not an orphan or a street kid. It's not Gox, it's not Wyndle, it's not the scribes, it's not the Azish nobles, or even the old philosopher she's been talking with here and there that she ends up finally listening to. No. She lends her ear to none other than Darkness, the heartless killer who has been murdering innocent potential Knights Radiant and street kids with not so much as blinking through 2 novellas now. This makes for an epic battle out in the Everstorm, a decisive moment where we finally see Lyft and Wyndle both live up to their purpose in a heroic way, and a very satisfying resolution that not only closes up our tale, but moves the entire Stormlight Archive forward in a very promising new direction. Edgedancer's pace is so much quicker and more action-packed than a typical Stormlight book, and it made reading it a joy. I stayed up way too late reading because I just couldn't put it down once I got to chapter 10. This is my favorite Stormlight story so far, and one of my top stories I've ever read, though it won't make a whole lot of sense if you haven't read Way of Kings or Words of Radiance first. My love for Edgedancer probably has a lot to do with the pacing, with Lyft's unique viewpoint, and with the very real threat of Nail/Darkness, who pulls no punches and sheds new light on the Skybreakers. It seems like Dalinar is going to have his hands full when he eventually crosses paths with Lyft and Nail. This is a must-read for Stormlight Archive fans and sits nicely between Words of Radiance and Oathbringer. I give Edgedancer all the stars. All the stars. It's a must-read. I loved every minute of it. It's fun. It's exciting. It's everything I wanted.